as planned. So we certainly want to welcome everybody back to this series called Relevant Conversations in the Current Crisis. And we're trying to cover a wide variety of topics in this particular series. And we understand the first few topics that we have covered have been very heavy on the tax-related side, as well as the changes in the CARES Act. We'll still be piggybacking on that just a little bit more as we kind of get the insider view from the bank's perspective of how all of this has changed, and some things from the banking side that maybe we can all better appreciate as they try themselves to handle dealing with the CARES Act and the Paycheck Protection Program. And we have with us today Dan Mason, who is the president of Traditional Bank. And Traditional Bank is a local bank here in Central Kentucky that actually operates in, I guess, 6 counties. Is that correct, Dan? You have Franklin County, Bourbon, Fayette, Clark, Montgomery, and Menifee. Am I missing one? All right. So we've got a lot of territory that you cover. And as far as the Fayette County is concerned, you guys are the 5th largest market share in Fayette County, which I think is very respectable given the fact that you know, your headquarters are outside that of Lexington and Mount Sterling, Kentucky. So you guys have made quite a bit of a landing here in Fayette County. You've got a good presence here. And I think as last count, based on the 2018 data, and of course you might want to update me with 2019 data, but you guys are a $1.5 billion bank. So that makes you a pretty good regional local bank here in Lexington, Kentucky. And you're the 12th largest bank in Kentucky, at least as of the 2018 data. And so we appreciate the kind of insider information, not necessarily insider information as much as perspective that you're going to be able to offer today, Dan. And I do want to just kind of put everybody on notice. It's a little bit of an interesting way that things work out because you are the newly minted president of Traditional Bank as of January 1st of this year. So welcome to your new role, and the crisis happened soon afterwards. So I am sure that is quite a challenge as it offered you, but as it kind of landed in your lap here. But just to kind of start things off, you know, normally we ask a question toward the end, and we'll certainly try to ask that same question toward the end. But I'm just kind of curious, just from a personal and a business perspective. I mean, how have your days changed in this crisis? You know, personally or professionally. What's kind of new with you as it relates to how you're having to handle this?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts there. You know, going into this new role, I'll start there. I went on vacation in late February, and when I got back, ended up with the flu A, and thought I was over it, came back, so I largely missed 3 weeks.
Wow.
So it's a little inauspicious start to my new role. But really, Mark, before I jump into that further, I thought a little bit about, you know, we had a conversation about these conversations. I just want to thank you for inviting me on, and also thank you for putting this together. I think it's a needed discussion, venue for discussion for our community, business community too. So thanks for that.
Oh, well, absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. I haven't been able to attend live, but I've listened to the recording. So really good. But my days have become really focused. You know, in the chief lending officer role that I was in, or the president role, you can get pulled in a whole lot of different directions. And so what I think the pandemic has caused for me is the days are really focused on the next set of circumstances that need to be addressed. So that's been a welcome change, honestly, for me. So there's a greater sense of productivity because you get things accomplished very quickly. That's what I would say.
Yeah, well, I would agree with you on that. It does put a certain demand on your resources that I don't think that under any other strain you might call to the table as quickly. But there's some definite good positive things to kind of come out of this if we allow this to, in our own personal character and our own personal way of doing things. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. Obviously, probably the biggest item of the day, and there's several things I'd like to address with you on this call. But it's going to be hard to ignore probably the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. So I know we have had some previous conversations over the last few days about that. And what I'd like to do is really, part of this forum is to help everybody see everybody else's side of the table, so that we can be compassionate, that we can be empathetic and sympathetic with how everybody is having to deal with things differently than they were before. And I think one of the things that's really easy for me, and I'll put myself out there, is that I get very buried in my own perspective. And as a result of that, I don't always appreciate, what's happening on the other side with the person that I'm trying to deal with. And that's definitely been one of my bigger takeaways in this process. And so this forum really is about trying to help us understand what your all's world looks like right now, so that we can better appreciate everything that you guys are up against. Because there is no doubt, based on the things that we're going to be talking about today, that you guys have been inundated. You too are having to drink from a fire hose in this whole thing. And you're having to stay very zero focused on this because there's a lot of moving parts. There's just a tremendous amount of moving parts. So I thought what was interesting in some of our previous conversations is, you said, you really need to look at this from the standpoint of the deadlines and how all this kind of trickled out. So you want to walk us through that as far as how you guys were having to face this and handle this and the timeline that you've been up against?
Yeah. I think that's a good place to start. To tell you how we got to this point where we are today, and then probably tell you where this point actually is, which is it's a very interesting day in the evolution of this process. So I went back and looked at some of my notes from when this started, and back in early March, we were talking about things like the economy starting to shut down. There was talk of school closures and all that sort of thing. And it was, how we were going to manage that process. What are we going to do with our people? What's that going to mean for staffing levels? What's that going to mean for our banking centers? And then what do we do about the transmission of the virus, and on all those kinds of conversations? Early on discussions about closing our lobbies to the point of, helping to stop the potential spread of the virus. So that was early on. And then, as things started to shut down, the call volume skyrocketed as everybody was concerned about, what's going to happen, how am I going to pay my loan, and all that sort of stuff as closures came. So we spent a lot of time coming up with a program about how we were going to help our borrowers through that situation. And then as we got past mid-March to late March, we started hearing about, the Senate bill that was talking about the $2 trillion Relief Act, or CARES Act, that eventually came to fruition and was actually signed into law on March 27th. And in that, there was the Paycheck Protection Program. And so the call volume, when that forgiveness term came out, Mark, that certainly piqued a lot of interest, and call volume skyrocketed again, which from our perspective, we talked about this yesterday around here. It's like, what would we be doing had we not had the Paycheck Protection Program? And honestly, it's a blessing that we do, because it gives our business owners an opportunity for relief in what is ultimately going to be a fast way to get money in their hands, instead of handling a lot of client requests one by one and doing the conventional underwriting and assessment. So from that perspective, we would have been doing a lot of that, which would have been extremely labor intensive in its own right. So, I'm thankful for the program. It's a monumental undertaking for the government to just disperse that much money, $350 billion, into the Paycheck Protection Program, and the financial institutions are the primary vehicle to get that done. So after March 27th, then it was on to try to get a process built to handle what we knew was going to be huge volume, because our client base is primarily business oriented, and we were getting estimates from our lenders about what they anticipated their applications would be. So we were seeing that, we were going to have to build a different kind of process than the standard lender take a request, do initial underwriting, give it to our credit analyst, and go through the approval process. That was not going to work in this world. So in a matter of from March 27th until the program actually opened up on April the 3rd for formal application, we built a process, and I think most banks had to do the same sort of thing that didn't use an outside contractor. We do all of our credit work in-house, so we spent a whole lot of resource time building the process while we were asking our clients to go ahead and provide initial information that we thought we would need to do what we were responsible for, and then also any other supplemental data, the application, and so forth. So all that got built, and I want to say, Mark, we built the front end system, which would be the application and our verification system and our tracking system. Up until even up until yesterday, we didn't know what the closing and funding and servicing responsibilities would be. So we began on April the 3rd. You want to go ahead?
Well, I was going to say you finished that thought, because it brought up something else that came to mind as far as.
So
you'll probably cover it.
Yeah. So we built the front end process, and then on April the 3rd started entering our applications into the ETrans system. We thought that was really important. I know all the other bankers out there thought the same thing, that we needed to get our customers' application into the SBA to make sure that their funds would be reserved. And I know the other bankers that I've talked to have thought similarly. So we worked over the weekend to get all those into the system. And we've done that. We're almost finished with our with reservation of funds for our existing customers. So that in and of itself has been a pretty monumental achievement. So now we turn to the closing process. We've got about 650 applications today that are ready to be closed. So what that means for us in terms of scale, that happened in about 5.5 days. We typically will close on over the course of a month about 190 to 200 notes. So that's incredible activity for us, and I know that's true for all the banks that teed this program up. So we got yesterday the guidance from the SBA, and so we have 10 days from the date that funds were reserved to close these. So we started taking we started getting reservation of funds last Friday. So we have until Monday. It gave us 10 days. So we don't have a lot of time to build a closing process and get them funded. And so that's what we're in the heart of today. And it's pretty intense around here. We've got a call at 3 o'clock with the lenders to say exactly how that's going to go over the course of about 20 hours. We've designed a closing process. It's all going to be electronic. Also, what documents that we need, and all that'll happen by next week. So
yeah, let me ask you a question about that real quickly, because when this was initially rolled out by the SBA, the media got a hold of it, and there were many mentions of the application and funding process potentially happening even on the same day or next day, which to me just sounded crazy that could happen. And if all the structure was in place to allow that to happen. So that seemed to set the tone and tenor to a lot of these people who were going after these loans. And then the next thing you know, the window doesn't open till April 3rd. And then, how are you handling the customer's expectations of how quickly this can get funded? Because how much of this is really, does it rest on your all's side? How much of it rests on the SBA side to make those two come together and for those funds to be released? So when you're saying they give you 10 days, is that everything to happen that has to happen at the bank level, or is this the entire process where the application is submitted to the point in time in which it's funded?
Yeah, no, it goes by the date that we enter into the SBA's ETrans portal or system. And when we do that, which is a little bit of a tedious process, it's gotten better. But as soon as we get that in there and it's correct, then the SBA will assign a loan number, which is essentially your approval. And so it's 10 days from the date of that assignment of the loan number that we have to fund. What they did do, which was helpful, Mark, was give us the authority to use our own loan documents so long as they match the term and structure.
Right.
That helps us. Because our loan document system rolls into our e-sign compliance system. So that makes the process much quicker, and all the loans are the same structure. So it should help in processing, and then the actual closing piece should be really good as long as our client base can use the technology. We've managed the expectations of our customers along the way to try to give them the message that this is as far as we can go. We don't know when we're going to get the guidance that will allow us to fund. I do know that there are banks out there that went ahead and just closed with their own documents before that guidance was issued. That's not our culture. We try hard to do things the right way. So we waited, good or bad. That's what we did.
Yep. Well, the volume itself is tremendous, just in what I've been reading, and even as of today, the volume of applications that have been submitted. And then I read a piece to where even you guys were really having to work through the weekend to get everything processed as quickly as possible. And if I've read correctly, didn't the ETrans system kind of, I guess, break down a little bit over the weekend, or was that your experience at all? Or
I guess from what I understand, and I don't know, I don't have a window in there, but they were doing modifications to the system throughout the weekend, and they were adding users. We're an SBA lender already, so we already had access rights to that portal, but we only had one. So we shared that password among a few people to help speed up the process, because we hadn't gotten our request fulfilled for additional users. So that likely caused us to crash some. So we did get our additional users on Monday, and so our staff has been catching up all week. So.
Well, I guess the good news is that things seem to be now moving forward. We have some news even, from Washington, that there may be some additional funds that are going to be put in, earmarked and put into the program if we can get it to be passed by the House and the Senate. But from a kind of a local regional bank's perspective, what are some of your concerns? Because obviously this is a volunteer system, correct? As far as banks
sure it is. Yeah, it's a voluntary system. You're right. We didn't view it that way. We never considered if we were going to do it unless it was there was a sense that it was truly going to hurt our shareholders and put the bank at risk. we kind of view this as an opportunity to help our clients out in a tough time, and that's we kind of figured we really needed to do this.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we kind of face the same thing on our side with this a little bit because we just, there's such a demand for it, and, clients don't understand every facet of it. And naturally that would be the case, that we would understand. And there's just a lot of, information to try to get out, a lot of emotions to try to deal with. And so I can't imagine what you guys are trying to do as you're moving forward this as well. And I think we talked about, just to try to give it a perspective, I mean, you've got, several hurdles that you had discussed before with me that just, were things that really helped. The first one being, I think, just the high volume of applications that you're having to deal with, and how that's kind of 3 times what you guys would have to be dealing with normally. And then just the short time frame that we're all trying to operate with, where, sometimes the guidance is coming out the day the window opens, and that's just tough. And we got another round of that, I think, tomorrow, April 10th?
Yeah, we are anticipating that we'll have the, independent contractors, that group of folks have guidance on that, Mark, and we'll see. I'm hopeful that they'll give us some clarification on that. And we've received some of those applications that we've got in a file that we're waiting to see what the guidance is going to be. So.
Yeah. So a lot of this is we are all waiting, and we're kind of at the mercy of the SBA as a lot of this moves on. And I think that's just an important perspective to understand, because you guys are doing everything that you can do, plus some, all hands on deck, working through the weekend, which is not typical for banks, right? To have everybody on deck, but you've had it on deck. But
I've been at for 25 years, and that's funny that banker's hour still comes up, and I'm like,
sorry.
It's been 7 or 8 till 5 to 7, and some Saturdays. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's fine. I'm
That's
thankful
okay. I know you guys have had to bring even more people into this process, into the table, and everybody's having to shift gears and kind of work outside their element even and come to the table to this. So I'm sure that's great, which kind of moves into some of the other things that I really was wanting to talk about too, as far as, let's back off the payroll protection program just for a minute, even though it's kind of the backdrop to maybe some of the things that I'll ask you here. Just so given the fact that everybody kind of rose to the occasion and the challenge that you guys were facing as a bank, you've had a lot of things to consider just from the banking standpoint, being one of those, essential businesses that have to stay open. So how are you guys handling, everybody else is at home, nobody, a lot of these businesses are shut down, but you guys still have to operate at the end of the day. So tell us a little bit about what you guys are facing from that front.
That's a good question, or a good statement. The interesting thing about this is that, and I will bring in all the things that people have done here. We have our teller staff, which have been diminished. Our cash management group has been in high demand as people switch to more electronic payment mechanisms, and then the loan approval process and all of that's meant for our lenders and our backroom operations. And then what's about to happen is our loan operation, the production of documents. So the bulge is going to hit them over the weekend. And it's remarkable to me that the people that we have here have all jumped in willingly and with an awesome sense of responsibility and caring and service. So to think about what they've done in the context of what's happening in their lives, Mark, you know the same things I do. They're dealing with child care situations, possible elder care issues, and the potential coronavirus and how contagious it is for that group, and job losses in families, and then some degree isolation. There's just a lot of personal, everybody's got different story as we go through this. And it's just, I'm just awestruck by what our people have done in the face of all those things that, we probably don't know to what detail they're dealing with, fear, anxiety, or any of those types of things. So it's been amazing. We do have lower staff levels as people deal with those family issues and childcare issues, and so we've cut the staff or allowed the staff has diminished, especially in the teller ranks, and we've had people step up to help in that. We will probably have to lower our hours so we don't burn our people out in the lobbies. HR has been really busy with, just listening to people and trying to help them in any way that we can as a bank. That's kind of our culture. And so it's really, you see, we talk about culture here all the time and how, we really try to care. You can't teach care. We just have a lot of really caring people, and it really showed up. I want to help achieve this. I want to help my person who is working on the teller line, and I'll be here and get you lunch or whatever because you can't leave, and just a lot of stuff like that. And, the bank's been great about buying lunches for folks and trying to help our restaurateurs that are shut down or on partial carry out only. So it's as challenging as it's been. You see a lot of good in tough times. So I couldn't be more thankful for these people.
Well, and that's a good thing to see as you come into your tenure as president, I'm sure. And I would imagine that sets a pretty good tone for you. It's given everybody a chance to, number one, rise to the occasion. Number two, to see what kind of solid team you are. And I think, as we had even talked before, you knew your culture was strong already, but in moments like this, when you see everybody stepping up, it just, you realize it was even stronger than what it really was. And I thought that was just extremely encouraging. And of course, you guys have had to adapt to technology as well, and a workforce that, potentially has to work from home. Do you have some workforce at home, correct?
We do. We're pretty careful about our data security, so we tiptoed into that, and there's a lot of bells and whistles on that. But yes,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, the culture piece, Andy Baker, our CEO, he's been here. I've been here for 10 years. He's been here for 35 plus. So, that was built a long time ago. And it continues today. So the job for Andy and myself is to make sure we perpetuate that in our own actions. And then the succession piece of it is, you got to teach people how to make loans, take deposits, and provide great customer service. But we got to transfer the culture piece too, and it goes pretty well. So.
Well, good. Well, as far as there's a shift in business as I see it, that's definitely brought technology more to the table than probably at any other time, where we're all having to consider how to work more from technology and utilize technology. So from the bank's side, what does this force you to look at as far as older business processes that you were used to before versus the business processes you're having to be used to and maybe adapt to now? Has there been any monumental shifts there, or things that have come to light that you think are going to kind of stay in place going forward? Just new ways of having to do business?
Yeah, the big piece is this working from home is interesting to think about, and as we've seen, we've been able to continue being productive and moving forward with key people working from home, and that brings us a lot of opportunity for our workforce, as you know, so many people have different schedules that they would like to work. You know, maybe I've got to stay home with, you know, my son or daughter who's ill, or elder care, or whatever the issue might be, or, you know, outbreaks of illness at the office. You know, you get opportunities. We can give opportunities for people to continue to work, but have more flexibility. So that'll be interesting to explore and have at our fingertips, just for the benefit of our employees. You know, we're multi-generational in our customer base, and a lot of people like to see a person face to face, or, you know, however they like that to be. And others, you know, I'll call you when I need you. I want to do as much as I can through my handheld device, or online through my laptop or whatever. So, you know, hopefully we'll embrace that a little bit more by delivering more of our services to people electronically, to those who want them, right? And then traditional means will remain. So hopefully we'll do that.
Well, is there any other thing that you want to share as far as just the perspective overall that we haven't touched on, but you'd kind of like to get out, and just from your all side of the table, that I haven't already maybe addressed in a question or something?
No, I don't think so. I think this is, I'm most curious about what's going to happen after this is over, for our economy and people's behaviors. You know, I don't know what that's going to look like. You know, how fast is the economy going to come back? Are people going to continue this, you know, cooking at home and not going out as much? Are they going to, they have demand, and they say, if I have to stay in this house one more time, one more day, you know, I'm going to go to every restaurant in town in the course of 30 days. You know, what about the workforce? What about office buildings? And how does all that change? And I don't know. I'm curious about that. So.
Yep, it'll be an interesting world to see on the other side. I do have one thing that's posed by someone who is participating in the web. So I want to pose this question. We'll try to wrap up with this. And it says, you know, consensus is that local banks are either better equipped or more willing to process these loans on behalf of their clients. Have you found this to be true?
That's a tough question. I talked to some of my community bank brethren, and they are facing, you know, similar challenges, but they're doing it because they want to help their clients. I mean, community banks will have clients that have been around for 20 or 30 years, and there's a sense that we've really got to take care of these folks that are loyal to us. So I don't know what drives the behaviors of big banks. I hear anecdotal things like their portal crashed, it's all electronic, and I couldn't get a hold of anybody. I don't know. You know, I've heard that a couple of times, so I can't extrapolate that to say, you know, they're not interested or they're not as good. I don't know. We've been so busy here, Mark. I don't know.
Well, I know there's, you know, some of this may be coming from the fact of some of the larger banks were really slow to make the application process available. Some of them were slow to open that window of time. There were those who were kind of narrowing it down to having to have another credit relationship with them before they would even consider an application. So there's been a lot of criticism, I think, of some of the bigger banks as that relates to. But I even think from a community bank standpoint, you know, the first, you got to take care of your own first, and then you can open that door to other people. So I think some of the criticism is just so much pent up demand and so many people wanting to apply and so many people needing it, that it's just a extremely large demand to try to fill at any level, big or small. And I don't think that really matters. So maybe that kind of comes into play in the question that was raised. But, I appreciate the perspective that you're sharing is, for you, you're just trying to tackle the day, and you're trying to stay focused on what you can do as a bank versus what other people aren't or can't do. So sometimes that's just what we have to do. We have to kind of keep our head in the game. And so I appreciate that. Certainly I appreciate the question too, but I think you guys you're doing a good job. You're doing everything that you can do. And I know that, that you really care about your customers. And so I think that's a good inside perspective. As we kind of wrap this up, we've gone a little bit long. So I just want to go ahead and ask, I try to ask everybody who participates in these things, just from a personal standpoint, what their biggest takeaway or one or two takeaways are from this whole thing, everything relating to the coronavirus, to things that you've had to face, any wake up call, anything that's just kind of made you take a step back and look at a little bit deeper than you've looked at before?
Well, as I say, my day has changed because it's focused, and your question is, I do have a heightened sense of focus on just really, it's about people. It's about these the employees that have risen to the occasion, and it's that with our our first responders and our healthcare workers and all those, and it's about taking care of our community through our customers, and that's really the focus. It's about people, and trying to do all you can for them. This is a place to live. And, the more businesses that we have that employ people and are vibrant, the better off we are.
Yeah, I'll second that. We do have a great community. It's a great place to live. Central Kentucky is amazing. And you're right, it is about the people. And that's exactly why we've felt it important to kind of pull this forum together, because it's about just getting conversations started. It's about having that dialogue. It's about trying to overcome the hurdles of the isolation and to at least bring people together where we can just kind of all talk and consider each other's side of the table. Speaking of that, we're going to get outside the box a little bit. So hopefully people are excited about some of the conversations that we have to come. And so we have had Dr. John Meek from Lexington Infectious Disease Consultants, who's agreed to come on Tuesday. So that'll be another really interesting topic, I'm sure, that might interest a lot of you as we get somewhat of an insider's perspective of those group of doctors and first responders who have been right on the front line of this whole thing in Lexington. So I hope everybody continues to tune in for that, and we'll get that invitation rolled out for Tuesday. But Dan, I appreciate your time. I mean, I know you guys are absolutely inundated, and you've got so many things on your plate, particularly as a new president, particularly in trying to take care of your employees as well as taking care of your customers, so that you would take this time to share with us and to share with this community is something special. And I appreciate that. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Mark. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you're doing. It's the opportunity to be here.
All right. Well, we appreciate it, everybody. I know we had some hiccups on Facebook Live. We'll make sure that the recording is put out on Facebook so that you can catch the recording. It's also going to be available on our website, on our YouTube channel. We'll try to make sure that's broadcast wide so that everybody has opportunity to benefit from the conversation that we've had today. But I pray that all of us stay safe and stay healthy, and we wish everyone a great rest of the afternoon and week. Again, Dan, thank you, and we'll catch up with you a little later, okay? All right, goodbye, everybody.